Michael lived in a small, cozy cabin nestled deep in the woods. He liked his quiet life, reading books by the fire and watching the birds outside his window. His cabin was old but sturdy, built by his grandfather, and it always felt safe and warm, especially when the wind howled outside. One evening, the sky turned a scary shade of gray. The wind started to pick up, rustling the leaves on the trees. Soon, rain began to fall, first as a gentle drizzle, then as a heavy downpour. Michael knew a big storm was coming. He checked the windows, made sure the fireplace was lit, and settled in with a book. But this storm was different. The wind screamed like an angry monster, and the rain pounded against the roof. The old cabin groaned and creaked, but it held strong. Michael felt safe inside, but he couldn't help but worry about anyone caught outside in this terrible weather. Little did he know, someone very close by was in desperate need of shelter. Someone who would soon change his life forever. The storm raged on, louder and fiercer than anything Michael had ever experienced. It was a storm that would bring a stranger to his door and turn his world upside down in the most unexpected way. Just as Michael was starting to doze off, he heard a loud bang. He jumped up, startled. What was that? He cautiously went to the door and peered through the peephole. He couldn't see anything but swirling rain and blurry trees. He opened the door a crack and called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" A faint voice answered, "Help. Please help me." Michael opened the door wider and saw a figure huddled on his porch. It was a woman, and she was very, very pregnant. She was soaking wet, shivering, and looked like she was about to collapse. He quickly pulled her inside. "Oh, thank you," she gasped, clutching her large belly. I didn't know where else to go. I saw your light." Michael helped her to a chair by the fire. He noticed she was young, maybe a little older than him, with kind eyes and a worried expression. Her clothes were drenched, and her hair was plastered to her face. "You're safe now," Michael said, trying to sound reassuring. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she replied, her voice trembling. And I think the baby is coming." Michael's eyes widened. A pregnant woman, in labor, in the middle of a storm. This was definitely not how he expected his quiet evening to go. He knew he had to help her, but he had no idea what to do. His cozy cabin, his safe haven, was now a potential delivery room. Despite the shock and a rising sense of panic, Michael knew he couldn't just stand there. Sarah needed help, and fast. Even though he lived alone and hadn't had much contact with people lately, he couldn't turn her away. His grandfather had always taught him to help those in need, no matter what. Okay, he stammered, trying to regain his composure. "Let's get you warmed up. We need to get you out of those wet clothes." He grabbed a thick, fluffy blanket from the armchair and wrapped it around Sarah's shivering body. "Here, this will help." He then rummaged through his closet, searching for something dry for her to wear. He found an old, oversized sweater and a pair of sweatpants that belonged to his grandfather. They were big, but they were clean and dry. "Here," he said, handing them to her. "These are the best I've got. You can change in the bathroom. It's right over there." Sarah gratefully took the clothes and slowly made her way to the small bathroom. Michael paced nervously, wondering what to do next. He knew absolutely nothing about delivering babies. He thought about calling for help, but the storm had knocked out the phone lines. He was on his own. He just hoped he could keep Sarah calm and comfortable until the storm passed and they could get to a hospital. But deep down, he had a feeling the baby wasn't going to wait that long. Once Sarah was changed and wrapped in the blanket, she looked a little better, though still pale and worried. "Thank you," she said again, her voice softer now. "You're a lifesaver." "It's no problem," Michael replied, trying to sound confident. "Is there anything else I can get you? Some water? Something to eat?" "Actually," Sarah said, "some hot chocolate would be amazing." Michael smiled. Hot chocolate he could handle. He went to the kitchen and put a kettle on the stove. While he waited for the water to boil, he found some marshmallows and chocolate syrup. He made 2 mugs of hot chocolate, piled high with marshmallows, and brought them back to the living room. As they sipped their hot chocolate, they started to talk. Sarah told Michael that she was on her way to her sister's house when her car broke down a few miles back. She tried to walk the rest of the way, but the storm caught her by surprise. She saw the light from his cabin and prayed someone was home. Michael told Sarah about his quiet life in the woods, about his grandfather, and about how much he loved reading. He learned that Sarah loved to paint and dreamed of opening her own art studio someday. Despite the stressful situation, they found themselves enjoying each other's company. The warm drinks and conversation helped to ease their nerves, at least for a little while. The storm still raged outside, but inside the cozy cabin, a connection was forming between 2 strangers brought together by chance. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out. The cabin was plunged into darkness, except for the warm glow of the fireplace. Sarah gasped, a little frightened. "Oh no," she said. "What now?" Michael tried to sound calm. "It's okay," he said. "The power probably went out because of the storm. I have candles." He rummaged in a drawer and found a box of candles and a lighter. He lit several candles and placed them around the room, creating a soft, flickering light. The cabin felt even cozier than before, like a safe little haven in the middle of the raging storm. "That's better," Sarah said, smiling a little. "It's kind of romantic, actually." Michael chuckled. "Romantic and a little bit scary," he said. "Tell you what, let's tell stories to pass the time." So, they sat by the fire, the candles casting dancing shadows on the walls, and told each other stories. Michael told funny stories about growing up in the woods, about clumsy squirrels and mischievous raccoons. Sarah told stories about her childhood, about her dreams of becoming an artist, and about the excitement and fear of becoming a mother. They laughed, they shared, and they forgot, for a little while, about the storm outside and the baby that was about to arrive. The darkness, instead of being scary, brought them closer together, creating a bond between them that neither of them expected. As the night wore on, the stories started to fade, and a different kind of tension filled the air. Sarah shifted in her chair, her face etched with discomfort. "Michael," she said, her voice tight, I think it's really happening." Michael's heart leaped into his throat. He tried to remember everything he'd ever seen in movies about childbirth, which wasn't much. Okay, he said, trying to sound like he knew what he was doing. "What do you need?" I don't know," Sarah gasped, clutching her stomach. "It hurts. A lot." She took a deep breath. "They're coming closer together." Michael knelt beside her, his hand hovering nervously. "Okay, just breathe," he said. "In and out. Like this." He demonstrated, taking slow, deep breaths. Sarah tried to follow his lead, but it was clear she was in a lot of pain. He could see the fear in her eyes, and he felt a surge of protectiveness towards her and the baby. He had to do something. He couldn't just sit there and watch her suffer. He grabbed a cool, damp cloth and gently wiped her forehead. "It's going to be okay, Sarah," he said, trying to reassure her, and himself. "We're going to get through this together." But inside, he was terrified. He was just a guy who lived alone in the woods, and now he was about to help deliver a baby. It was the scariest and most amazing thing he had ever faced. The baby was coming, ready or not. Suddenly, Michael remembered something. Years ago, his grandfather had insisted he take a first aid class at the local community center. At the time, he thought it was a waste of time, but now, snippets of information were flooding back to him. He remembered the instructor talking about childbirth, about the importance of staying calm, about providing support. "Okay, Sarah," he said, his voice sounding a little more confident now. "I remember some things from a class I took. We need to get you comfortable." Can you lie down? He helped her lie down on the couch, arranging pillows to support her back and head. He remembered the instructor saying something about having clean towels and blankets ready. He rushed to the linen closet and grabbed every clean towel and blanket he could find. "Okay," he said, spreading the towels on the couch. "We need to make sure everything is clean." He also remembered something about needing hot water. He filled a pot with water and put it on the fireplace to heat. As he worked, he tried to stay calm, repeating the instructor's words in his head. Stay calm. Provide support. Make sure everything is clean. He knew he wasn't a doctor, but he was all Sarah had. He had to do his best. He had to be strong for her and for the baby. The baby was coming, and he was going to help bring it into the world, in the middle of a storm, in his grandfather's cozy cabin. It was a moment he would never forget. The next few hours were a blur of pain, fear, and determination. Michael stayed by Sarah's side, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, and encouraging her to breathe. He tried to remember everything from the first aid class, but mostly he just listened to Sarah and tried to do whatever she needed. He spoke in a soothing voice, "You're doing great, Sarah. You're so strong. Just a little bit longer." Sarah squeezed his hand tightly, her face contorted with pain. I can't do this," she gasped. "Yes, you can," Michael said firmly. "You are doing it. I'm here with you. We're going to do this together." He remembered the instructor saying something about pushing. "Okay, Sarah," he said. "When you feel the next contraction, try to push. Just push as hard as you can." Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath. When the next contraction came, she pushed with all her might. Michael held his breath, watching her, feeling helpless but determined. He kept repeating words of encouragement, telling her she was doing amazing. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he saw it. A tiny head, covered in dark hair, was emerging. Michael's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't believe it. He was actually helping to deliver a baby. He continued to encourage Sarah, telling her to push one last time. And then, with one final push, the baby was born. Michael gently caught the baby and carefully placed her on Sarah's chest. The baby was tiny and wrinkled, but she was perfect. She let out a small cry, and Michael felt tears welling up in his eyes. He had never felt anything like this before. "It's a girl," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "You have a beautiful baby girl." Sarah looked down at her daughter, her face radiant with love and exhaustion. "She's beautiful," she said, her voice weak but full of joy. "Thank you, Michael. Thank you for everything." Michael quickly grabbed a clean towel and gently dried the baby, then wrapped her in a soft blanket. He handed her back to Sarah, who cradled her close. They both looked at the baby, marveling at her tiny fingers and toes, her perfect little nose. For a long moment, they just sat there, in the soft candlelight, gazing at the newborn baby. The storm still raged outside, but inside the cabin, there was only peace and love. Michael felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility and protectiveness towards Sarah and the baby. He knew that their lives had changed forever. He was no longer just a guy who lived alone in the woods. He was now part of something bigger, something more important. He was part of a family. And he wouldn't have it any other way. The baby was finally here, safe and sound. As the first rays of sunlight peeked through the cabin windows, Michael noticed that the storm had finally stopped. The birds were singing, and the air smelled fresh and clean. It was as if nature itself was celebrating the new life that had entered the world. He carefully got up and went to the window. The sky was a brilliant blue, and the sun was shining brightly. The trees, though battered and bruised, stood tall and proud. He took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief and gratitude. Sarah and the baby were safe. They had made it through the storm. He went back to the couch and gently checked on Sarah and the baby. They were both sleeping peacefully, the baby nestled in Sarah's arms. He watched them for a moment, his heart swelling with love. He knew he would do anything to protect them. Later that morning, after Sarah woke up and had something to eat, she looked at Michael with tears in her eyes. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said. "You saved our lives." Michael smiled. "You did all the hard work," he said. "I just helped a little." "But I don't have anyone," Sarah continued, her voice trembling. "My sister moved away last year, and I don't have any other family. I don't know where I'm going to go." Her words hung in the air. Michael looked at Sarah, his heart filled with compassion. He couldn't imagine being in her situation, alone with a newborn baby and nowhere to go. He thought about his quiet life in the cabin, about the peace and solitude he had always cherished. But now, everything felt different. He couldn't just let Sarah and the baby leave. He took a deep breath and said, "Sarah, you don't have to worry about that. You can stay here. With me." Sarah looked at him in surprise, her eyes wide. "Really? You would do that?" Michael nodded. "Of course," he said. "I know it's not much, but you're welcome to stay here as long as you need to. We can figure things out together." He didn't know why he was saying it. Maybe it was the protectiveness he felt towards them, or maybe it was the connection they had formed during the storm. Whatever it was, he knew it was the right thing to do. He couldn't imagine his life without them now. A small smile spread across Sarah's face. "Thank you, Michael," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're the kindest person I've ever met." Michael smiled back, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "It's my pleasure," he said. "Besides, I think I'm getting pretty good at this whole dad thing." He chuckled, and Sarah laughed along with him. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Michael felt a sense of hope and excitement. He had a family now, and he was ready to face whatever came their way. And so, Sarah and the baby stayed. Michael's cozy cabin, once a haven of solitude, was now filled with the sounds of cooing and gurgling. He quickly learned how to change diapers, how to burp a baby, and how to soothe her when she cried. He was a natural. Sarah, in turn, helped Michael open up and come out of his shell. She encouraged him to pursue his own interests, to read aloud to the baby, and to share his stories with her. She started painting again, filling the cabin with colorful canvases. They worked together, sharing the responsibilities of caring for the baby and keeping the cabin running. They cooked meals together, they cleaned together, and they laughed together. It wasn't always easy. There were sleepless nights, messy diapers, and moments of frustration. But through it all, their bond grew stronger. They named the baby Lily, because she was as delicate and beautiful as a flower. Lily brought so much joy into their lives. She was the glue that held them together, the light that shone in their little cabin in the woods. Michael couldn't imagine his life without her, or without Sarah. He had found a family in the most unexpected way, and he was grateful for every moment. The cabin was no longer just a safe place, it was a home filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future. Michael found himself waking up each morning with a smile on his face. He loved the feeling of Lily's tiny hand gripping his finger, and he loved the sound of Sarah's laughter filling the cabin. He learned how to be a dad, reading bedtime stories in silly voices and building blanket forts in the living room. He was surprised at how natural it felt. Sarah, who had always been independent, learned to trust again. She trusted Michael with her heart and with her daughter's life. She watched him with Lily, seeing the tenderness and love in his eyes, and she knew she had found something special. She started sketching designs for her art studio, dreaming of a future where she could share her passion with others. Lily grew bigger and stronger every day, her bright eyes full of curiosity and wonder. She loved exploring the woods with Michael, pointing at the birds and squirrels, her little face alight with joy. She was a happy baby, surrounded by love and warmth. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Lily asleep in her crib, Sarah turned to Michael, her eyes shining. "You know," she said, "I can't imagine my life without you two. You've given me a home, a family, everything I've ever wanted." Michael took her hand, his heart overflowing with love. "You've given me the same," he said. "I was so lonely before. You and Lily have brought so much joy into my life." He knew that he was falling in love with Sarah, and he suspected she felt the same way. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. Michael and Sarah continued to grow closer, their love for each other deepening with each passing day. They were a team, partners in life, and the best parents they could be to Lily. Michael realized that his life was so much richer and fuller than it had ever been before. He no longer felt lonely or isolated. He had found a purpose, a reason to wake up each morning with a smile on his face. He loved being a dad, and he loved Sarah more than words could say. Sarah, too, felt like she had finally found her place in the world. She had always longed for a family, for a sense of belonging, and now she had it. She loved Michael's kindness, his gentle nature, and his unwavering love for her and Lily. She knew that she could trust him with anything, and that he would always be there for them. One sunny afternoon, as they were playing in the yard with Lily, Michael stopped and looked at Sarah, his eyes filled with love. "Sarah," he said, "I know this is sudden, but I have to ask you something." He knelt down on one knee, taking her hand in his. "Will you marry me? Will you be my wife, and will we be a family forever?" Sarah gasped, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, Michael," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, I will." Lily clapped her hands, giggling with delight. Michael slipped a simple ring onto Sarah's finger, and they embraced, their hearts overflowing with love and happiness. They were going to be a family, forever. They planned a small, intimate wedding in the cabin, surrounded by the beauty of the woods. Lily, now a toddler, was the flower girl, scattering petals with her tiny hands. Michael's friends from town came to celebrate with them, and Sarah even managed to reconnect with her sister, who traveled from out of state for the special day. As they stood before the fireplace, exchanging vows, Michael looked at Sarah, his heart overflowing with love and gratitude. He couldn't believe how much his life had changed in such a short time. He had gone from being a lonely recluse to a loving husband and father. He had found happiness in the most unexpected place, with the most unexpected people. Sarah, too, felt like her life had come full circle. She had found a home, a family, and a love that she had only dreamed of. She looked at Michael, her eyes shining with tears of joy, and she knew that she had made the right decision. She had found her soulmate, her partner, her best friend. They exchanged rings, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. They kissed, sealing their vows, and the cabin erupted in applause. They were finally a family, bound together by love, loyalty, and the memory of a stormy night that had changed their lives forever. They were home. The future was bright, filled with endless possibilities. Years passed, and the cabin in the woods became a haven of love and laughter. Michael and Sarah watched Lily grow into a bright and curious young girl, who loved to explore the woods, paint pictures, and read stories by the fire. They eventually had another child, a son named Sam, who brought even more joy into their lives. Sarah finally opened her art studio in town, sharing her passion with the community. Michael continued to work from home, writing and illustrating children's books, inspired by his own family. They often told Lily and Sam the story of how they met, about the big storm, the pregnant stranger, and the unexpected birth in the cozy cabin. The children loved hearing the tale, marveling at how a single night could change everything. As they grew older, Michael and Sarah never forgot the lessons they had learned from that experience. They taught their children the importance of kindness, compassion, and helping those in need. They showed them that family isn't always about blood, but about love, loyalty, and commitment. And so, in the little cabin in the woods, a loving family thrived, a testament to the power of love, the strength of the human spirit, and the magic that can happen when you open your heart to a stranger during a storm. Their story was a reminder that sometimes, the greatest blessings come in the most unexpected packages. It all started with a storm, but it blossomed into a lifetime of love.